Welcome to the Asset Management, instructor-led, training videos. In this video, we will talk about asset management, business intelligence.
Today we're going to be running through our business intelligence tools, so basically the reporting tool that our shippers and asset owners currently utilize in asset management. That again is accessible through the asset management application under business intelligence. Just something to note, we do have to grant access to our business intelligence tool, or the shipper or asset owner needs to grant access to their users. It can be at a user level, so it's just, again, something to note. So first you'll go in by clicking Business Intelligence, and it will bring you over to Jaspersoft, which is, again, the tool we currently use for reporting. The typical page that it will drop the users off on is the repository. This is basically any reports that they're able to run within the asset management application. Right now, because I'm logged in as a Bloom user, I have access to every single report, depending on the user. So if it's a shipper, they will be restricted to only shipper type of reports, which is, again, a lot of guided ad hoc reports, which have the GH in them, as well as a handful of shipper reports typically based on billing. For example, Union Pacific has a net crossover charge. They might have a custom report built for tracking that net crossover. CSX, NS, all the rails essentially can do the same thing. If I'm an asset owner, I get access again to all of the guided ad hoc reports, but I'll also have any customized reports they basically ask Bloom to build out. So you'll see a much larger list for our asset owners when you're coming in here to take a look at the reports that were built out for them, as well as the out-of-the-box report. Much like the asset management application itself, you will have, again, the standard tabs up top here, where you can go in and actually view, again, the library where the reports are, the search area, the repository where we currently are, scheduled, any messages that were sent within the application, which I don't think we actually use. They can manage their users through here, and then they can create reports through here. And again, basically the reports that they can create through here are based on the reports they have access to. So starting off with a simple navigation, again, for the detailed area is going to be in the bigger window here, and then they can click down on and anything that has additional information regarding the reports they're trying to look for. I'm going to go through each one of these, but essentially their primary ones that they typically operate out of is this reporting view. If I'm a asset owner, I could operate in the dashboard view as well. They have some access to some dashboards that are in there, but for the intensive purposes for this training, we're just going to be focusing on the report view. So looking at this view here, so we'll go into the most common. You're as simple as clicking on the report. You can run these on-demand reports. So again, depending on the type of report that you're running, it's either going to be real-time or as of X days back. Again, typically a report will indicate how far back it's pulling the information. But for purposes, and I probably clicked on the worst report I could have clicked on for so many people, I'm going to have to go in as a user. So right now we're going in as a shipper. So I'm impersonating Russ, who is what we did the shipper training with. So again, as we noted before, if I were Russ and I logged into the actual Jaspersoft tool, again, he's only getting access to shipper-related reports and then selected asset owner reports, again, typically based on manual billing processes that we might run, or helping them manage their equipment based on possible billing scenarios we could be issuing on behalf of the railroad. So again, we're going to go into, let's go. So when the report first opens up, it's not going to display information right away for you. It's going to ask you on the left-hand side, basically the criteria in which you want to build out the report. With Jasper, we typically look for a range, and they'll give you three different options. You can either select a certain range, static range, that, again, simple as you pick the between date. Your option 2 essentially is how many days back you want to run this report. And just something to note, again, if you do option 2, it will override anything you put in option 1. And then the last option, you can do year-to-date, month-to-date, week-to-date, or previous whole month. Again, this will overwrite any other options you selected above it. So for now, we're going to do month-to-date. Coming down, we'll ask for, again, the dimensions. Each report, just again, based on the complexity and how much information you're pulling back, will have additional options on the left-hand side. Just again, it's additional areas that you can select information that you want to pull back. By default, if you don't select anything, it will just pull that information. So you'll notice, and again, it's kind of funky. And this one, it's showing that it's selecting all these all these dimensions. It's selecting all these metrics. And if you come down here, even though we haven't selected any of the programs, it will default default to grabbing everything. For this scenario, we're just going to grab EMP. Sorry, we're doing month to date, EMP. Break it down by railroad. So we'll leave again, we're going to grab everything. Goes again by metro, ramp. Again, you can select depending on what that user has access to, what offices they have access to. Russ has access to Mode and TTS. If I'm another user within the Mode organization, I don't have access to certain Mode offices and don't have access to TTS, they would not be able to select or see that information in here. Again, because Russ is an admin, he's a very big, he has access to everything within the organization. He has access to all the child offices as well. And then again, additional features and options here. Once you've selected everything that you want to pull for that report, all you have to do is hit apply. Again, depending on the report size and the amount of data you're pulling, this could take a little while. It is recommended for bigger data sets. So we have a lot of billing reports in here where you're pulling, months on end. So if you're looking 3-4 months back and you're a larger company, we do recommend that they schedule it out opposed to running it on demand, just because again, the amount of time it will take. So as you can see, that it is now pulled back the information that we asked for through all the options on the left-hand side. From here, they have the ability to download the report that they just created. And we have all the options here that are pretty standard across our industry. Get enabled code. I've never talked to a customer or utilized a customer, or at least on the support side regarding this. So it's there if they want to see it. If not, they can schedule directly from here. We'll walk through scheduling in a second, but they do have the ability to come in here and schedule this report. If they like what they see, they can come in and immediately schedule it. They can zoom in. They can search for certain parts, certain areas within the report. Just something to note is because of the amount of information we pull back, it's broken into pages. So if you want to see, again, a note when we train folks, just make sure that you are very much aware that there are additional pages. Something to note on the last page, which again, for troubleshooting purposes, especially on the support side, any export of this, so if they were to download it or schedule it, Jasper will always show us what they selected for filters. Again, huge from a support perspective. Anytime we see these blanks in here, that means they didn't select anything, so the system's going to pull everything regarding that option that they had in there. But a big one for us. And also, again, it tells you who the user is that actually created and generated that report, which again is super helpful for troubleshooting purposes. All right, so next we're going to go in and figure out how to schedule a report. So again, that's a big piece of of the reporting tool, and why it's incredibly valuable for a lot of our shippers and asset owners out there, is the fact that we are in this situation, we're not telling them to come into our system and pull this information. We can actually push the information to their system or push it to their email address or wherever. They use our reporting a lot for, in some situations, they use it as almost like a data feed for asset management, where they'll have scheduled charge reports going out, and they will actually be picked up by their internal systems and then fed into their system. It could be their billing system, it could be their TMS system. So they have the ability to set those up within our application and get those running through Jasper, through our reporting tools. They can also use it where a big thing we push with customers is if there's a certain type of behavior that they want to cut down on, or make sure that they're not screwing up on letting reservations expire too much. They could set up basically a report, for example, reservations that are expiring for that day, and have it fire out. They can then go in and for street interchanges, for example, if they have a bunch of interchanges that are occurring that are going to their office that they want to be aware of, they can set up a report that will capture those interchanges and then send it off to their email address that they can now view and monitor. So again, it's a great tool for shippers and asset owners to kind of have information at their fingertips that is pushed to them, opposed to them having to always come into our system. So scheduling the reports within Jasper, relatively simple. You'll notice that there is a clock on some of these reports. That means reports have essentially been scheduled for these reports. So again, if I'm Russ, or I'm currently as Russ, so if I click on this, it's going to bring me over to a report that I have built out for this whatever scenario I have in here. They can come in here, and again, if they have multiple reports that are scheduled, multiple scheduled report for the same report, that will populate again line item by line item, showing you each individual report broken out, and then they can come in here and adjust or delete or turn off these reports through the options here on the right hand side. For us creating a report, they do have the option to again create the report through here. Like they did when they were running it real time. They can also create it through the scheduled job screen. They can run the report on demand, so if they want it running right here, right now, they can just fire that out right now, and they can refresh the list. Another option they have for scheduling a report is if they right click, they also have the ability again to run a new tab or schedule. So when scheduling reports within these screens, we basically give them a variety, or basically 4 different tabs they're going to have to run through in order to get these reports set up. The schedule, again, we can do it pretty basic on here, so we can have it so it starts off immediately, or they can set a certain specific date. They can set the time zone. Again, depending on where they are, we have users all over the country. We typically have them set up for their current time zone, but they do have the ability to adjust it depending on where this report's running to and who it's going to. So if I'm a user on the East Coast, I'm setting it up for someone on the West Coast, I would likely set this at West Coast time, because that's the person who gets it is going to be what they're going to be looking at for that time and date. We have a recurrence type. So again, they can set it as a real one time. I'm going to run it this Friday. I want it to fire off once and then go, and then not have to worry about it again. Or they can, again, more common, set it up as a recurrent. So they have the option here to do a simple recurrence, which again, pretty self-explanatory. Repeats once a day. They can break it down between hours, minutes, weeks. They can have a number of times it runs until it basically ends. They can also set a certain date that ends it, or they can just run it until end of time. They can also exclude holidays. Again, we don't typically push folks on this, but it is there if that is an option that they want that. A lot of our users, we find, use the calendar recurrence. You can be a lot more granular when you want this thing to run, even down to the hour. So if you have it running once a day, you can set it up for just running during the weekdays. If you're only working 5 days a week, you can select those days. You can only want it running twice a week, whatever. You can set it in here to run. You can also do it within date ranges. I want it to run on the 1st and the 15th of every month. They have a little more flexibility of how they want this data to be pushed out to them. Once they've filled this out, next we'll look at the parameters on the report. So we have, again, a report I selected. This one is CSX's reports. So it's going to be much more limited. So the options that we saw when we were running the original report on the left-hand side, again, depending on the report you are running, we're currently running one of CSX's report, which does not have a lot of options in here. But if you're running, for example, again, a billing report, so like GH1004, there is a lot of parameters, a lot of options on that left-hand side. You would have in here the ability to select whatever options are on the left-hand side and customize it to exactly the way you want it to spit the report out. If you do all that while actually running the reports on demand and then hit schedule report, all those should carry over and, again, make it a lot easier because you've already seen the data. But from here, it's kind of coming in here and just knowing what you want to see and then selecting the appropriate option. So in this one, we're running at a summary level. We're doing it for current billing period, and we're going to run it. I'm not going to select anything in here. I could select, but again, I typically leave it blank because if Mode acquires another company or something changes in here, it will automatically gobble up the next parent shipper that Russ has access to. We have come across scenarios where when customers are coming in, they're actually selecting locations, and then a new office comes in. A new office will come in, but it won't automatically be selected. Where if you have these blank, our system will automatically default to just grabbing anything and everything that pops in there. All right, once the parameters are set up, they'll go over to the output options. This is again where they will name the file of the report, what they want it to be called. Typically, we tell them to give it some kind of description if there's any kind of variation, rather than leaving it as just CSXT1182. We typically say, okay, what did you alter in here? In this scenario, we're looking at everything. You could do all offices. And again, description, we typically tell them, put in any information that we want to make sure that when you're looking at the schedule report, you can actually see what this report is essentially running, what you're doing in there. Worst thing you can do is be vague, because then you'll actually have to click into every schedule to figure out what report is running what. This will at least give you a high level overview of what you're pulling on these reports. For the most part, a lot of our customers very rarely do the PDF. Most of our customers do XLSX or CSV, again, because the larger data sets, those two tend to pull in the most information that they can go in there and actually modify the data to their liking. They have the ability to override files. So Jasper will store these reports for them in the repository. So every report that gets fired out, it will keep a copy in there. If they hit the override files, this will just, every time a new one comes out, will overwrite the old one. They want to keep, a list of all their older reports. They can keep it sequential file names, and that will basically keep, with the timestamps, that will basically keep a laundry list of every report they ever ran. They don't typically, they don't have to touch this stuff and I can't even talk to this stuff. This is more outside of my realm, but we typically keep it in here because this output folder here is basically where these reports will be dumping to. And then it looks like they also have the ability to push to FTP servers, which again, we don't typically talk through that. If it's anything higher level than that, we typically get our BI team involved in. Lastly, notification. So this is what we actually want to have on the physical email that is being sent out to the customer. Again, because I think it's because I am logged in as myself, the right hand side here is coming in here. I do not believe they have access or visibility into this piece. I think this is all Bloom notes. The only thing they'll see when logging in is email notification piece, this stuff on the left hand side. Pretty simple stuff, 2 fields, who it's going to, any CCs, any BCCs. Typically when the customer support team or success managers on the support staff are troubleshooting a report, they'll see themselves on reports for their outputs just to kind of see what the customer is seeing, or if they want to verify that they made a change correctly, they might throw themselves on there just for the first couple times it runs, and then the Bloom staff would come in here and remove themselves off the BCC. Subject, like any email, what do you want the subject to be on the email? Again, we push pretty heavily on making sure they include the report name and then what they did to that report. Same with the message, more detail of what exactly the modifications are with that report. But again, it's up to them. It's strictly for their purposes. And then again, the bottom piece here is include the report as an attachment or a zip, but also they have the ability down here where if the report spins up and nothing triggers, they have the ability basically to shut this, basically not send out this email. We typically advise against this on the support staff just because, again, if they're going through the motions of setting up this report to warn them when things are going on, if anything were to change on that report and for whatever reason they're now getting a blank, they're not getting a report at all, it's better to see that you're not getting a report and then be like, okay, why is this blank, rather than not get a report at all because you check this box and then you just forget about it over time. And then months later, you're like, oh yeah, I had this report. What happened to it? So again, we typically tell customers not to do this, but we do have some that have the option to select that. From there, they will hit save. This will save the report. Again, I'm in as a user currently in production, so I do not want to save under his name currently. But again, once you hit save, it will bring you back to this screen and you'll see again the new job that was put in here, the one you just created with all the information in here that it coincides with that report you just built out. What is again nice for troubleshooting purposes and things, even when we talk through with customers saying they didn't receive a report, this last run area here is very helpful for identifying when did this last go out to the customer. They can kind of help take a look back at emails around that time and date, look for the email or the report that ran, or again, runtime. If it is expired out, it will, that report will no longer be issuing out. So we can also see if this is blank here, we know it's not going to send again. We should probably look into the recurrence and figure out why they didn't reschedule it. Again, more troubleshooting purposes. All right, take it over. So to view just some of the reports that were sent out by for example, that Russ Sprayer was part of, we can go in here. We'll go past month. Oh, I wanted month. So this is basically taking a look at this. He basically has all these reports that are currently scheduled that are set up for him for basically any time that he's had set up. So by clicking in through here, so when we go, same as the last screen we're on, he has the ability to go in and basically check each one of these reports to see what exactly was, what reports he currently has scheduled that he can go in and view. This kind of, again, is just another way for them to kind of dwindle down that larger list to know, again, in the situation we're looking at any scheduled report. I have to remember now where repository data is. There we go. It's gonna be a tough one because they have a data feed. So basically so when we build out these reports and we set those schedules, and to make sure that where we noted saying basically they can either write over the report or they can put a timestamp at the end to continue to add that report in here. Because Mode's such a huge company, see if I can find Scotty in here. Oh, these are all guys ad hoc. Russ has the ability to come in, basically take a look at every report that's ever fired out for that he has access to or that has set up for his company. So if you notice in here, he's got a very large amount of all Randolph report built in here. So it's, again, a guided ad hoc. If he knows the actual report name, so depending on what he has set up. So if we go again to report, we'll go reservation recap, to grab the right name. So we go to job name. This, again, is that schedule report. Again, he has it so he never loses track of a report. It's never rewriting themselves. So he's got literally one that runs it looks like it runs every single day. Yep, looks like it runs every single day and triggers in here. And again, by selecting it, this might not pop up. Oh, it does. This will basically give you an output of the report that was sent out at that time and day, which is, again, super convenient for these guys. If they lost their report or they can't find it in their email, they do have the ability to go into Jasper and take a look at the reports that they have scheduled in that brand and have sent. Okay, I think that's it, Glenn.